This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
Crude prices eased about 1% on Friday on worries that global oil demand growth could be hit by a strong U.S. dollar and negative economic news from some parts of the world. Prices declined despite signs of improving U.S. oil demand and falling fuel inventories that helped boost crude prices to a 7-week high a day earlier. Brent futures fell 47 cents, or 0.6%, to settle at $85.24 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude, WTI, ended 56 cents, or 0.7%, lower at $80.73. The decline pushed WTI out of technically overbought territory for the first time in 4 days, while Brent futures remained overbought for a fourth day in a row for the first time since early April.
The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency will review Texas oversight of wells used for injecting oil drilling wastewater and carbon dioxide into the ground after substantial concerns from environmental groups that the operations are behind a spate of well blowouts, sinkholes and seismic activity. The EPA announced the review in a May 23 letter to the environmental groups that was seen by Reuters on Friday. 9 Texas-based environmental and watchdog groups led by Commission Shift and Clean Water Action requested the review in March.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
India's oil imports from Russia rose to a record of about 2.1 million barrels per day, BPD, in May as discounts for Russian oil widened on lower demand from China, according to trade sources and shipping data. That boosted Russia's share in the world's third-largest importer and consumer to nearly 41% last month, the data showed. Meanwhile, supply from Saudi Arabia dropped to a 10-month low, the data showed, after Saudi Aramco hiked term prices for a second month in May. Refiners in India have been gorging on Russian oil, sold at a discount after some European nations shunned purchases from Moscow over its invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Also, similar grades from regions mainly in the Middle East are costlier.
Europe has clocked a record number of hours of negative power prices this year due to a mismatch between demand and supply as solar power generation soars, potentially helping to shift investment to much-needed storage solutions. Wholesale power markets in most of Europe's key economies turned out zero or negative prices for a record number of hours in the first 5 months of this year at times of low demand. That means producers more frequently have to pay to offload power or stop their plants. One could certainly say that, at this point, success is consuming its own offspring, Marcus Hagel, energy policy expert at German utility Triennial, told Reuters. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. Spot palladium prices in London hit a 1-month high and briefly broke above the key level of $1,000 per troy ounce in volatile trade on Friday as some investors covered their short positions and the market was tight for nearby physical supply. Spot palladium was up 2.6% at $947 per troy ounce by 16:55 GMT after hitting $1,027, its highest since May 22. Prices had touched their lowest in 4 months of $867.51 on Tuesday. The indicators of the short-term liquidity tightness were visible in thin market, known as an exchange of futures for physicals, where parties exchange a futures contract for the physical product.
Global crude steel production in May rose 1.5% from a year earlier to 165.1 million tons, World Steel Association data showed on Friday. Crude steel output from China, the world's top producer and consumer of the metal, rose 2.7% to 92.9 million tons in May, the data showed.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
The condition of France's main wheat crop was unchanged for the second week in a row last week. Data from Farm Office France Agri showed on Friday, but the harvest is still set to plunge this summer after a damp growing season. Ratings of French soft wheat showed 62% of crops as being in good or excellent condition by June 17, unchanged from the previous 2 weeks, the office said in a serial report. That was down from 83% a year earlier and remained the lowest score for the time of year since 2020, another year in which French wheat crops were affected by heavy rain, France Agrima's data showed.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.